Member for Melbourne. The question is that the address be agreed to, and I call the member for Dawson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I didn't want to start my speech this way, but when you have to sit through 20 minutes of extreme Green statements that are being thrown about in this chamber, that it's basically just absolute rubbish, you've got to say something in return. And I got to say, the member who just spoke, shows exactly why. Misspoke. The member who just misspoke shows exactly why the voters kicked out the last government. He shows exactly why the voters kicked out the last government that were beholden to his political party, the Australian Greens, and a ragtag bunch of independents that used to sit behind me up here. Disgraceful, the fact that people are politicking off natural disasters in this country. People politicking off natural disasters. We've had bushfires before, we've had droughts before, we've had floods before. They are terrible, terrible things. Not my way. We've had plenty of cyclones before in the past. But every time one happens now, we have the Australian Greens jumping on the bandwagon and saying that, this has got to do with climate change. Oh, woe is me, the sky is falling. And no, it doesn't, because they've happened before. These events, they'll happen again. And Australians know it, and I've got to tell you that they feel very offended when the Greens come out and try and play politics with these issues. The member pointed to all of these so-called records, heat waves that we've had through Australia, but forgetting that the fact Australia is not the only place on the globe. It's supposed to be global warming. We've actually had record cold temperatures in many countries right across the world, and in fact, nearly universally, all climate scientists will tell you that for the last 17 years there has not been evidence of warming in the globe. There has not been evidence of warming in the globe. That is something that even the most ardent proponents of the theory of man-made climate change are scratching their heads about. The member here, as I say, he's proven why the last government was kicked out. He talked about us acceding to special interests. Well, we do accede to one very special interest, the Australian people, who did not want a carbon tax that the previous member, the member for Melbourne, actually concocted with the previous government and the other independents and forced on the Australian people. Mr Deputy Speaker, I want to acknowledge the Governor-General in giving her address and reply speech, and thank her for that speech on behalf of Her Majesty's Government. In doing so, also want to congratulate retired General Peter Cosgrove, ACMC, who has been appointed to the role of Governor-General and will be duly sworn into that position in the coming months. Now, I also want to thank the electors of Dawson for having the faith in me to represent them again in this parliament, right from Mackay, right along that North Queensland coast up to Townsville, the many different communities, the Whitsundays, the Burdekin, and also the community of Bowen. Once a Labor stronghold, was 60-40 in most booths, flipped around to be 60-40 LNP this time, and I'm particularly pleased with that. Very sad to hear in the news today, actually, Mr Deputy Speaker, that Bowen's famous big mango has gone missing. Apparently overnight something happened, and there's some footage of that apparently floating around, and they've turned up this morning, the Bowen tourism people, to find the mango gone. So I hope and pray that for the sake of that town's honour, that the Bowen mango is restored and we don't see thefts of the big banana and the big pineapple to create some big fruit salad. But getting back to the topic, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is a privilege and an honour to have been re-elected as the member for Dawson. I said during the election campaign that I was going to be a strong local voice for those people in a better government, and I'm very glad that I can be that strong local voice in a better government. We set out with a plan for the Dawson electorate The plan involved fixing the Bruce Highway. The plan involved having policies that would stop the boats. The plan involved axing the carbon tax. And the plan involved, for local industry, restoring job security. And I've got to say, we are doing it on all of those fronts. Certainly with stopping the boats, it has now been nearly 10 weeks since we have had unauthorised boat arrivals in this country. It is one of the issues that when I walked around the electorate and talked to people in the street and asked them what was their biggest concern, they would say to me, look, on the national level, this whole illegal immigration thing is out of control. We've got to do something about it. And they're right to have those concerns. They shouldn't be denigrated for having those concerns, as so many on the left do, and particularly the Greens do. I mean, we need to know exactly who's coming into this country. We need to know their backgrounds. We need to know that they're not a security risk. We need to ensure that our immigration system is sacrosanct and is not being, I suppose, undermined by people coming through methods which, as a country, we simply don't prefer. And so I congratulate the Prime Minister and the Minister for Immigration for all they have done in the short time we have been in government to achieve this quite remarkable result, where we've taken what was a full-blown crisis and actually almost completely solved it. As I say, for nearly 10 weeks that has been the case. More than that, we've got a plan, obviously, to get rid of this carbon tax and, along with it, the mining tax. That currently is being frustrated in the other place, where the Liberal and National Coalition do not have control of the Senate. And you know, that is a shame, and I would have hoped that Labor and even the Greens, yes, I can hope that much, would actually have recognised that the government has a mandate on these issues that we campaign so strongly on, getting rid of the carbon tax, getting rid of the mining tax. Because in my community of central Queensland in particular, and all up through North Queensland, those two policies have caused economic chaos. We have had we've had thousands of job losses. In fact, I think the figure at last count by the Queensland Resources Council put it upwards of 15,000 job losses in the mining sector, particularly in the Bowen Basin, and I've got to say particularly that is being felt right on my doorstep throughout the Mackay region. With the removal of the carbon tax and the mining tax putting pressure not just on large coal mines and potential future investment in coal mines, but it was also putting pressure on mining service businesses who are feeling the squeeze at the time when they really could not afford to. And if the Labor Party would get out of the way and allow us to implement what we were elected to implement, we could get things up and running again and restore some of the job security. Now, there's been, I suppose, a few brickbats thrown at the government from those opposite about the car makers leaving Australia, conveniently forgetting the fact that you know, Ford left under the watch of the last government, or announced so leaving under the watch of the last government. I have made it pretty clear my position on this issue. These were industries which were being propped up by taxpayer dollars, and you know, no one ever came to central Queensland and said to those mining service companies in my area that were feeling the pinch, that were having to shed jobs, that actually closed the doors, went into receivership, whatever, because of the downturn, because of the policies, or partly because of the policies implemented by the previous government, policies like the carbon tax and the mining tax. No one from government ever rocked up and said, well, how much do you want a cheque made out to keep your doors open? And if that is the case for businesses throughout central Queensland, then it should be the case for businesses in Victoria, in Geelong. It should be the case for businesses in South Australia as well, particularly when they're multinational companies. So, to go on with what our plan was for the electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, I've got to say I made many local commitments. We committed to and had a time frame that we've now got in place for the rollout and construction of the Mackay Ring Road, something that is vitally needed in our region, something that the last government actually did little about, apart from a $10 million study. I mean, they didn't even set aside funding in this financial year to do the detailed design work and the resumptions that were needed, and they should have done that. Now it is up to this government to get on with the job and do that, and we will be doing it. I'm in continued discussions with the Minister for Infrastructure about getting that funding pulled on sooner rather than later, in fact going quicker than the timeframe that was announced during the election, and I'm hopeful about that. We've also got plans for the upgrade of the Sandy Gully, a flood-prone area that we've got near the Bowen community. We've also got plans in place for the upgrade of the patently unsafe and also flood-prone Horton River Bridge just north of Brandon in the Burdekin. We committed to providing social infrastructure for the electorate with a contribution of $750,000 going to Gymnastics Mackay for their new gymnastics centre, and that was something that I campaigned long and hard about in the previous parliamentary term, repeatedly asking the government to approve the requests from Gymnastics Mackay for funding to go towards that centre. We committed to projects such as the Green Army, a Green Army one that we would locate in the Whitsundays, helping an excellent organisation called Eco Barge Clean Seas. Eco Barge do this great practical environmental job, you know, better than anything you'd ever see coming from the Australian Greens. They go out and they actually clean up the marine debris. They go out into the Whitsunday Islands, get their hands dirty, pick up all the rubbish, the flotsam and jetsam that's coming off boats, that washes up out of our waterways, that comes from, quite frankly, kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks, and ends up washing out into the ocean. This is practical stuff, and we're going to provide a Green Army for them. It'll actually be more like a Green Navy, given that it's going to be out in the sea, to help them do that job and do that job better. And also we've got a Green Army there for the Don River Trust in Bowen. They're going to be doing some environmental work, but work that will assist that river in flowing more freely, ensuring that there isn't a build-up of sand, which actually poses a risk to both life and property in the Bowen and Queens Beach area. I made a number of, I'll go on with a few other government commitments that we've made. A mobile CCTV unit for the Mackay Regional Council. I think we're talking about funding, well, we are talking about funding at least 2 of those and possibly up to 4, depending on how far the dollars stretch. But that funding will, as I said, go towards these mobile CCTV units to investigate things like vandalism in parks, illegal dumping, of which we've got a problem right throughout the Mackay region. We also promised funding to light up some of the inner city CBD car parks, a problem that has been raised with me by younger women in particular, and also shop owners and female workers in the CBD. So very glad that we provided those commitments for the region. Personally, I actually promised some things myself, some sponsorships for groups, and I'm currently rolling that out. We're already contributed $5,000 to improve and build upon the Mackay Recreational Fishers Alliance Young Angler Education Program, where they're teaching kids how to fish. I mean, and it's amazing when you go and see some of these kids out there and learning how to fish for the first time, baiting, putting the bait on the hook, learning how to cast a line, and they end up loving it and taking on that hobby for life. I've given $5,000 to the 50s and Better Association in Mackay to also build upon the activities that they provide for seniors in our region. $15,000 from my pocket is going to the Whitsundays community to help them build a playground, an adventure playground in Cannonvale. It's an innovative community concept, community-driven concept, and something I've been very happy to support. And along with that, $12,000 going to the establishment of a homeless drop-in centre in the Mackay region. They are just some of the things that personally I committed to utilising funding from my electoral allowance, and I think that these are important projects for the region that I can directly contribute to as a local MP. One of the other things that we also promised, Mr Deputy Speaker, was to get on with the job of approving the Abbott Point coal terminal expansion. It has been a controversial decision, I know, but I've got to say there have been so many green lies told about this project, it is not funny. For the town of Bowen, this project is so important, it is vital. We have had business after business after business shut their doors, people out of work, a community that really is in decline and is in the doldrums. And they were hanging their hat on Abbott Point being approved. And I've got to say, we have approved that. We approved that at the end of last year. That project will go ahead once the Green groups actually finish their court challenge for it, which is probably obligatory. And what I've got to say, what disturbs me is the fact that the Green groups that are now taking this matter to court, the Green groups that engaged in political campaigns against the government and against this project, Green groups that also receive tax deductibility status. And I've got to say, I will make it my mission this term to see that that tax deductibility status is stripped from those groups that engage in political campaigns like this, destructive campaigns like this, where they tell blatant lies about job-creating projects, and it's always harmful to North Queensland. You know, we go on to attacks that the Green groups and other people in the sort of nanny state brigade have also waged against the sugar industry, and as someone from the biggest sugar-growing electorate in Australia, I feel obliged to stand up and defend the sugar industry, and I'll continue to do that this term. Along with that, now we've got people, unfortunately, within the bureaucracy from the Bureau of Resource and Energy Economics that have come out with this report saying that the so-called subsidies to the ethanol industry should be scrapped. I've got to say that I am fiercely against the recommendations that come out of that report. That report was clearly wrong. It has understated the employment that's been generated by the ethanol industry, and you know, even to the fact that they were talking about how ethanol excise was being foregone to the tune of 38 cents a litre, forgetting the fact that actually government and both sides of the political spectrum has only ever said that ethanol excise will at the most be 12.5 cents a litre. So that report was based on outright lies, and I will continue to stand up and speak out for the sugar industry in matters like this. In the short time that I have left, can I thank a bunch of people? I want to thank the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers for Agriculture and Industry, and a former member, Sophie Mirabella, for coming to my electorate. Can I also thank the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister for Finance, who also came to assist me in my electorate. Can I thank my staff members, Dave Westman, Dennis O'Reilly, Nicole Laffin, who has since left to go and have a baby, Anne Whitson, Kathleen Agnew, Margaret McLean, Danielle Nielsen, and some people that assisted temporarily and in volunteer roles throughout the campaign, Anne, Tamara, Casey, Rebecca, my indefatigable electorate council and campaign committee people, Charlie Camilleri and Kerry Latta, and a bunch of other members. And I've got to say, if I sat here and read that list out, I'd have to have another 20 minutes, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I don't think you'll give it to me. But I do want to mention Jim Ward, a stalwart of the Liberal National Party in the Airlie Beach area, who sadly, I found out a week ago, passed away to pneumonia. Jim, I probably never really stopped to say, to give him the thanks and appreciation that I should have. Sure, I said thanks for the help, but we always say thanks for the help to our volunteers. Jim went out of his way for the cause. He went out of his way for me, and I thank him so much, and his family, from the bottom of my heart. It's going to be very sad to not be able to talk to Jim in the future, to be able to catch up with him and get harangued about different things that he might think that we could be doing better. But I do thank Jim. And look, with those words, Mr Deputy Speaker, I just want to again thank my entire electorate for the privilege of being here. I will be their strong voice in a better government.
Thank the member for Dawson. The question is that the address be agreed to, and I